Okay, so today we're going to learn how to solve this using the quadratic formula. And using the quadratic formula is pretty easy for this thing, as long as you know the quadratic formula, which the quadratic formula is negative, whoops, need a pen for this, negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And again, you'll want to know what your a, your b, and your c term is. My a term here is 1, since they didn't put a number in front of x squared. My b term is 7, and my c term is 3. So a, b, and c. When we go through and we do this, we're just going to plug in all the information. So I know this is negative 7 plus or minus the square root of b squared, which b squared would be 49, minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, whoops, which is 3 in this case, all over 2 times a. If I simplify this a little bit, this would be negative 7 plus or minus. I do all the stuff in the square root. So 4 times 3 is 12. So we just have to do 49 minus 12, which gives us 37. All over 2. And I would actually leave this as my final answer. Now I could go further and try to get some numbers. If I wanted to get some numbers, I could break it down to be negative 7 plus radical 37 over 2, and negative 7 minus radical 37 over 2. And then trying to get some whole numbers, which you'd have to take the square root of 37, and you'd have to do minus that, so minus by 7, which gives you that, and then divide by 2, which we can see that this is a really just nasty decimal. We do the same thing here. But this time, since they're both negative, we would add them together, and they would be negative, and then we would divide by 2, and we get negative 6.5. And those would be our two answers. If they wanted it in simplest radical form, this above is in simplest radical form already. So most times, I would leave my answer as this if this doesn't simplify any further. Let's do one more where we can actually simplify the radical in here. Okay, when I'm solving this one, again, we're going to do negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Again, a, b, c. If they don't give you a number, it's 1. Plug all that mess in. So, in this case, we would have negative 9 plus or minus the square root of 81 minus 4ac, which 4, a would be 1, and c would be negative 9, over 2 times 1. For this, you get negative 9 plus or minus the square root of, well, we'd have, that'd be 81 plus 36, which adds up to be 117. Over 2. And again, most times you'd want this to be your final answer. The only problem with this one this time is that this square root can be simplified. And so here's how you simplify square root. If you square root like 117, you want to sit here and think about what are all the factors of 117 that are perfect squares. Because perfect squares are the nice thing to square root. So you'll divide like 117 by 4, because that's the smallest perfect square, being 2. That didn't work. 117 by 9, because that's the second smallest one. Oh no, look, we have 13. So we could go 117 is made up of 9 and 13. I know what the square root of 9 is. It's 3. But I have no clue what the square root of 13 is. So we're going to leave that as radical 3. And so for our answer, we write as 9 plus or minus 3 radical 13 all over 2. And again, this would be my final answer. If you really wanted to, you could do the same thing that we did last time with the decimals. This is how MathSpace will want it today. MathSpace will want it in this simplest radical form instead of as decimal approximations. If you get stuck with any of the square root stuff, just let me know. And this was the quadratic video.